Right, diving into lesson 2. So essentially another way to look at this problem of what to sell is similar to what we said before, obviously solving a problem, but a slightly different way of looking at it is just improving a product. So taking something and making it a little bit better, really, because this is another super valuable way of looking at things, really. And I guess for context, I just think, especially nowadays more than ever, it's basically impossible to invent something entirely new, to reinvent the wheel. Like, even things like Facebook back in the day weren't entirely new technologies. Like, Facebook was like MySpace. I think Google was similar to something else. Obviously they're just massive kind of unicorn examples, but even on a more basic level, it's like think of any musician or athlete, there's always the next big thing. Like, even if you just think about it in the past few months, I don't know, like with myself, there's that artist who featured with Justin Bieber, the Kid Laroi. He's just popped out of nowhere, kind of. At least in my mind he has, and he's the next big thing. In 5 years' time, maybe he's done, maybe someone else has come in. Like, there's always the next thing in life, whether it be musicians, athletes, brands. Like, another obvious example again, and we'll probably use them a few times, is Gymshark. Like, think about, they launched, what, 9 years ago? I think 9 years ago. And like, prior to them, there wasn't really, you know, any other major gym brand other than sort of Nike, Puma, Adidas, like the household names. And many people would have thought, well, why is there room for another brand in that space? But actually, they just did something better. They did the whole influencer marketing community thing better than those other brands, even though the product is arguably very similar, if not basically the same, to be honest. They just did something a little better, and their angle improved it. So yeah, I just think for context, like, everything starts somewhere, basically, is the point. You never want to be in the mindset that everything's been done, so therefore I can't come in at all, and I can't do it better, and I can't do my way, because you definitely can, and history repeats itself. And that's the way markets have always worked, whether it's musicians, athletes, like I say, or ecom brands. So yeah, I guess every market is crowded, but there's no excuse not to start at all, because, you know, there's always an angle of it, especially when you look at, like, what can I improve? I don't even have to create something. I don't have to make something entirely new. It's just taking things that are already there and yeah, just improving them. Because yeah, there's so many examples of brands that were once considered the best that have now been replaced, really. Like, you think of Topshop or ASOS. This is a classic example, which we'll come on to more in a minute. Like, 10 years ago, Topshop was everything. Like, it was high street, but then obviously it got replaced by ASOS, and then probably more recently kind of Boohoo Group, like Pretty Little Thing, all those sort of brands, because they did everything online, and that was more relevant, and it was an improved shopping experience for their market, because people didn't want to be going into shops in the same way. Everything's moved online, social media generation. So that's one massive example. But I guess, yeah, just women's fashion in general, like, again, we were just kind of thinking out loud using examples here, but let's just dive in. Obviously women's fashion is super competitive, but I just want to get us thinking, like, everything can be improved, and you can notice things on the spot. So, like, obviously we've got a few different brands up here, and again, this is how we'll do things. We'll always use examples, always have context. Nasty Gal, Motel Rocks, I Saw It First, In The Style. I've literally clicked on these websites, and one thing I noticed straight away that I think not necessarily could be improved, or I guess could be improved or could be done differently if I was wanting to start a women's fashion brand, which is, I'm using this example because it's arguably the most competitive space, but there's always an angle to improve something or do it differently. Like, one obvious thing is, in my mind, and I'm not a girl, but, you know, there's choice paralysis. Like, it's all about massive amount of SKUs and all these websites. I reckon there's probably tens of thousands of SKUs, different products in all these websites. And instantly, and everything's always on sale as well. And I'm just thinking, straight away, one angle of doing things would just be simplicity. Like, how can we just only offer stuff that in our mind is better, rather than just offering 50,000 bloody variants of everything? And I guess another thing, like, how can we get away from this discount culture? And I guess there's an element to say that of course works, but there's certainly a market of people that would rather just buy stuff at a fair price because maybe it's made in more responsible factories, all that sort of thing. So straight away, just off the top of my head, moving away from this insane amount of choice that all these brands offer, going at it from a more, I guess, sustainably conscious way of looking at things, rather than all these constant discounts, etc., would be one way of certainly differentiating yourself in a super crowded market. And yeah, that's just off the top of my head. I mean, obviously these brands discount and it works for a reason, But what I'm saying is that there's always an angle to change something, tweak something, improve it a little bit, and carve out a unique identity in a super crowded market just by thinking that way, like, how can we do things slightly better? And that's just one way of looking at it. You could go on to product quality, you could go on to, like, I don't know, shipping speed, price, everything. There's always a way to do something slightly better for a certain market, and better doesn't always mean it has to be cheaper or whatever, but, you know, doing something better for a market. And that's definitely a way, just off the top of my head, in women's fashion, how you could differentiate and do something different. And yeah, again, coming back to the Topshop thing, like, obviously, yeah, 10 years ago, that was, I mean, I used to buy from Top Man, I'm sure everyone did, and these sort of brands didn't exist. Whereas now, Pretty Little Thing, Boohoo, that entire group of companies, I think Nasty Gal is part of that as well now, they completely dominate the space, because all they did basically was say, we're not going to have any stores, which obviously reduced costs massively, etc., but they're just going to do everything entirely online, and it's going to be about Instagram, it's going to be about social media first, and it's that hot 16 to 30 market which all these brands are competing in, and Topshop just couldn't keep up, because obviously they had all the major stores, and it was just, there's always the next big thing, basically, is what I'm saying. And it's interesting to think ahead, who will be the next big monster brand in this space, because I'm sure there'll be another one. Like, generally speaking, brands have a life period, really, like a period where they're big and a period where other brands come in, and whether because they're more nimble, they've got younger founders, etc., they just do things differently. Like, I'm sure there'll be brands that will pop out of TikTok specifically, and there already are some, and anything that comes next. And it'll be interesting to see what's next, because there always is the next big thing. And you know, it's just interesting to stay on top of that, because if you never launch a brand, you're never going to be the next big thing. So yeah, I think it's super exciting. So I guess, again, this is kind of obviously one way, one angle of looking at things in terms of deciding what to sell, and at least realizing that everything's crowded, but everything's an opportunity as well. And again, it's a mindset thing, really. It's just there's so many different ways to look at things, to see opportunities. And I think, obviously, just thinking out loud here, this is a great example and just proves the point. So I think key takeaways, again, to summarize, is every business could be improved, even the very, very biggest. Like, we could probably look at Pretty Little Thing for an hour and think of 1,000 things that, you know, a startup we want to launch could do better. So I just think being aware of that, because obviously, yeah, larger businesses are very much more stuck in their ways, slow moving. You can be nimble and fast. Well, obviously, big brands that already exist can't be as much. I guess as well, historic successes always get overtaken by new solutions eventually. Like we're saying, Topshop is now absolutely dominated by things like Pretty Little Thing. So it's interesting to see, like, in different markets, where has that not happened yet? Where could that happen soon? Could your brand be the one that overtakes? Because it certainly could be. And I guess as well, just never forgetting that literally every brand started from zero. Every brand, every musician, every athlete, every big thing, every big public figure or business started from zero. And often, you know, they started with a mindset of just thinking, how can I improve this slightly? How can I solve a problem? How can I improve something that's out there in the market? And history does repeat itself. So I just think being very aware of that is a great way to start and get you in the right mindset. So, okay, moving on to some homework, and a building block again is keeping it super simple, but just super relevant. Is just take a look at 5 brands or websites that you like, that you follow, that you buy from, whatever, just brands that you're aware of, and find something you could make just a little bit better from those brands, and write that down and really just think about it, and maybe take some examples where you think they couldn't be improved. You think they're a great brand, and we all have examples of those, and still be super picky and think, what could I improve in that? Like, is there anything at all? Be super picky, be super pedantic, because it's a great way to analyze, and it's a great way to get in the right mindset. And with that said, we'll move on to lesson 3.